In the last class, we saw two applications of Max-Flow-Minkert theorem. And the second application was done almost in the last 5 minutes of the interaction. So I thought I should just go over it one more time. I'm sure all of you have already looked at it and may not require much more explanation. But let's do it one more time. This application was about a network connectivity problem. So to state the problem, you're given a graph G, two designated vertices S and T, and you're required to find the minimum sized subset F of the edges, removal of which disconnects the sink vertex from the source vertex. Okay, and let me also say that there are multiple ways of solving this problem. Solving it via Max-Flow theorem is just one of them. So now we use the following theorem: maximum number of edge disjoint paths between S and T in a graph is equal to the minimum number of edges whose removal disconnects T from S. And basically what we said as a result is that the edge connectivity problem, I'm sorry, the edge disjoint path problem is related to the network connectivity problem. So this is a different reduction from the first one, where we showed that Max-Flow-Minkert theorem is related to disjoint edge problem. Okay, so we went through the proof of this theorem last time. Let's go over it one more time. I'll prove the reverse direction first. What we are required to show here is that the number of edges, so what we are required to show is that, so let's say F is a subset of edges, and that is the minimal set of edges such that the removal of F disconnects T from S. From here, I need to build S to T edge disjoint paths. Each S to T path must have at least one edge from this subset F. And therefore, the set of edge disjoint paths must have cardinality at most as much as cardinality of F. Okay, so that direction is quite straightforward. On the other hand, suppose your graph has k edge disjoint paths. Now, this direction goes via a connection to a Max-Flow-Minkert theorem. So that's what we are going to appeal to next. So if there are k edge disjoint paths, then as we saw in the previous application, this means that there is a flow of value k in the graph. By the Max-Flow-Minkert theorem, there is a cut St of capacity k. And now let F be the edges in this cut. By the definition of a cut, removal of F obviously disconnects the vertex T from S. So this basically shows that the maximum number of edge disjoint S to T paths in the graph is equal to the minimum number of edges, removal of which disconnects T from S. Okay. So please feel free to ask questions if any. And what I'm going to do is change the slide deck and move over to the second application that we plan to see today of the Max-Flow-Minkert theorem. The second application we plan to see is slightly more delicate. It requires a little more work to show that it follows from the Max-Flow-Minkert theorem. But the problem is very interesting, and I'm sure you will enjoy that discussion as well. So let me pause for half a minute in case somebody has any questions. Feel free to ask them now, or else we'll move on with the second application. All right, if there aren't any questions, let's move on with the next application. So as I said, the Max-Flow min-cut problem is in fact motivated from a real-life application, and it was motivated by during the early days of the Cold War. And I had told you about this Soviet rail network where the American people were trying to find out which among the cities or which among these links in this network can they disrupt in order to disrupt the flow of goods from East Europe to Russia. Right, so this was a very practical situation where the problem arose, and it has. I mean, this can be thought of as one real life, quote unquote, real life application of Max-Flow min-cut theorem. Of course, we saw a couple of other applications like finding edge disjoint paths, which is also related to this problem, and about network connectivity, which is also related to this picture. Now, the next application I'll talk about is slightly different. It is not so directly connected to this picture here. So that is about maximum bipartite matching problem. Okay, so let me describe the problem to you. You're given a directed graph, an undirected graph that is bipartite. And what you're required to find is the largest set M, which is a subset of edges, such that for any two edges in the set, they do not share a common vertex. So here is a graph on the left. It has all the edges in the graph are drawn. And on the right, the two red edges are the two red edges form a matching. A matching is simply a subset of edges, no two of which share an endpoint. Unfortunately, though, this is not a maximum matching. But this one is a maximum matching. In the previous picture, two red edges that are drawn in this picture, there is no other edge that I can add to the set so that it continues to be a matching. So for instance, if I take these two edges and now try to add this edge to the matching, it stops being a matching because we get two edges such that they share an endpoint. So a matching is not allowed to have such edges. It must be a collection of edges such that no two of them share an endpoint. But this problem asks for more. It asks you to find the maximum bipartite matching, which means that you must be able to add as many edges as possible. Okay? And in this case, for instance, for this graph, the maximum matching is of size, maximum bipartite matching is of size 3. So we can add 3 edges to this matching. Okay, so in general, you are required to find maximum size set, subset of edges such that no two of them share an endpoint. That's the maximum bipartite matching problem. And the bipartite only comes from the fact that the underlying graph is bipartite. The maximum matching problem for general graphs would mean that the graph is not necessarily bipartite. Okay, here too there are several ways of solving this problem, but we will derive the solution for this as an application of the Max-Flow min-cut problem. So here is our strategy. What we'll do is we'll start with the input instance of the bipartite maximum matching. So we start with the graph. From here, we create an instance of the flow network, say G prime. So that what that means is from the originally given undirected graph, we come up with a directed graph which has a designated source, a sink, and capacities on the edges. Then we show that the value of the maximum flow in G prime equals the size of the maximum matching in G. Okay, so this is just the outer strategy of how we plan to go about deriving the solution of maximum bipartite matching problem via the Max-Flow-Minkert theorem. Okay, there is a comment in the comment box which says that some people are having trouble with the shared screen. So can somebody else confirm that my shared screen is not visible? Okay. So many others seem to suggest that it is visible. Could it be that Aditya, it is a yeah, you can try to rejoin. Maybe I'll just pause for half a second, half a minute. Let me know if it's fixed. Okay, great. Okay. So as I was saying, this is the outer strategy for proving what we want to prove. Now the question is, how do we execute the strategy? How do we come up with the graph G prime such that the following these conditions are met? Okay, so actually conversion to G prime is quite intuitive in this case. So let's try to do that. So I'm given this bipartite graph undirected. All I do is just this conversion. Okay, as you can see, I've added certain directions. I've added source and target nodes, source and sink nodes. And I'm going to add some capacities. In this case, I'm going to try adding just capacity 1 on all edges. Okay, so just to put it down as a put down the strategy more formally, and because we also need some notation, let me just fix it on this slide. So the given graph, given bipartite undirected graph, we are calling it G. Its set of vertices is V. Its set of edges is E. From this, we are going to construct a flow network that's going to be a directed graph with a designated source and a sink. We are going to call it G prime. Its vertex set consists of the vertex set of the original graph, union with two new vertices, S and T. Now, we describe the set of edges in G prime. For every U and every V, two vertices of the parts X and Y, if UV is an edge in the original graph, then we add a directed edge from U to V in G prime. For U in X, we add a directed edge from S to U in G prime. For V in Y, we add a directed edge from V to T in G prime. And finally, we add a capacity of 1 on all the edges that we added in the graph G prime. Okay, so that's about it. That's the whole strategy to describe how G prime is constructed from G. I hope the construction is quite straightforward and therefore clear to everyone. Okay, so now what remains is that we need to show that the flow in G prime, the value of the flow in the graph G prime equals the size of the maximum, the size of the matching in G. So specifically, we are going to prove the following lemma. So let G be a bipartite graph, let G prime be the flow network constructed as above. Then if M is a matching in the graph G, then there is an integral flow f in G prime such that value of f equals cardinality of M. Okay, that's one direction. So given a matching, I can construct a flow such that the value of the flow equals the cardinality of the matching. Now, I'm sure all of you will be able to guess what the other direction must be. Conversely, if f is an integer flow, integer value flow in G prime, then there is a matching M in G such that the size of the matching equals the value of the flow. Okay? So from a matching, I can construct a flow and with the condition that the value of the flow is equal to the cardinality of the matching, and the other way around. Given a flow in G prime, I can construct a matching. So we need to prove both these things, and if we are able to do that, then basically what we have done is solve the maximum matching problem using the max flow min cut. The max flow, the solution for the max flow problem in the graph. In order to prove these statements, we will end up appealing to the max flow min cut theorem as well. But here the reduction is just to the maximum flow problem. Okay, so what we are going to do next is we are going to try to prove both these statements. Okay? The first one is relatively easy to prove. The second one requires a little more work. And that's the plan for, let's say, the next 30-35 minutes or so. Okay, so let's get started with part one. This, as I said, is kind of straightforward. So let's go through it. So for each edge E in the matching, so from a matching, I'm trying to construct a flow. This is how I do it. Take any edge in the matching. The matching in the graph G, mind you. So there S, T, etc. are not there. But from that matching, I'm going to map a flow. So what I do is for every edge in the matching, I assign the following flow to the edges in G prime. I give flow of value 1 to 3 edges if there is one edge in the matching M. Okay? So the 3 edges to which I give non-trivial flow values are SU, UV, and VT. And I give flow of value 1 to all these 3 edges. Now for every edge UV in the matching, this is the mapping I do. And for all the other edges which are not in the matching, I just assign a flow of value 0 to them. So first thing to notice is that F indeed defines a flow. Capacity constraints are satisfied because all the flow values are at most 1. And conservation constraints are satisfied because every vertex U that belongs to the matching has a flow value entering, flow of value 1 entering it, and a flow of value 1 leaving it. And if a vertex does not belong to the matching, then it has a flow of value 0 entering it and a flow of value 0 leaving it. So capacity constraints as well as conservation constraints are satisfied. So this is a valid flow. And now it is quite easy to see that the value of the flow indeed equals the size of the matching. because for every edge in the matching, we have a flow of value 1. And if you just look at all the edges leaving S and look at the edges that carry a flow of value 1, that equals the number of vertices that are on the X side of the graph that participate in the matching. Okay, so that's really it. This shows that if I am given a matching in the graph in G, then I can construct a flow in G prime. And the value of the flow equals the size of the matching. All right. So now the other direction. The other direction is also not very difficult. It's just a little delicate, is a slightly delicate argument. Okay. So let's try to prove this. Here we are given an integral flow f of value cardinality f. What we are going to do is we are going to make some 4 simple observations, and when we put these 4 observations together, that will give us the proof of this part. So let me describe the 4 observations we make. Just to recall, this purple line is what we need to prove. So here are the 4 observations. Firstly, we'll observe that the flow is either 0, 1 for each edge E and E prime. This is something we have done in other applications as well, and it will be quite easy to show this. Let M be a set. Now I'm trying to describe the matching we will form from the flow, and we haven't yet shown that this is a matching or anything like that, but let's just define a set M of edges. It's defined as follows. Let E be an edge E is put in the set M if and only if the edge belongs to E prime as well as E, and it has a flow of value 1 in it. Now, once we form this set M, we plan to show 3 things about it. Firstly, that M has cardinality f many edges. Each vertex in X participates in at most 1 edge in M, and each vertex in Y participates in at most 1 edge in M. Note that if we show all these things, then we have actually proven what we wanted to prove. So let's quickly understand why. As soon as I say that every vertex in X and every vertex in Y participates in at most 1 edge in M, this tells us that M is a matching. And if the value, if we are able to say that M has cardinality equal to the value of the flow, then it also shows that what we wanted to say. The only catch is that M may not be very well defined. If we just put, if I don't, without showing, say, this statement, I only show these last 3 things, then it's not clear that M is well defined. For M to be well defined, we have to first say that, in fact, all the flow values are either 0 or 1 for the edges in E prime. Okay, so basically that's what we are going to do. First, we'll argue that the flow values are either 0 or 1. Then M will be well defined. And then for this M, we show these 3 things. Okay, if there are any questions, I'll just pause for half a minute and let me know if something is unclear. Okay, so if there is one comment here. Yeah, for F many edges, we need to prove statement 1 anyway, right? For F many edges. What do you mean by statement 1 here? Are we calling this statement 1?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't quite follow that comment, sorry. So I think Akash is trying to suggest why statement 1 holds, and your argument is quite right. We just go through it on the next slide, but that's correct. I see. So Adarsh is suggesting that we can go via the edge disjointness path problem and argue matchings, but there is a little bit of a catch because, you know, edge disjoint paths could potentially, for example, look like this. Okay. So you could have possibly in edge disjoint paths, multiple edges leaving a vertex, but in the matching, that's not quite allowed. Does that answer your question, Adarsh?
Ma'am, but in these paths, that the edge from S to that vertex is common, right?
Yeah. We are going to use something similar in order to say that, you know, there is at most one edge leaving X and at most one edge entering Y. You're absolutely right. Isn't the SV1 edge repeating? Yeah. Exactly. So, but I mean, you could have things, yeah. So what you're saying is correct in the sense that you will argue something like there is at most one edge entering a vertex here because from S you can at most have one edge. And so two edges cannot leave a certain vertex. And then you could appeal to edge disjoint paths. That's probably correct. Yeah, so I mean, this is one way of proving it, as I said. This is not the only way to prove the statement. This is slightly helpful to do it this way because it becomes very modular. Or else you have to, for example, if I say that from first principles or from just Max-Flow Minkert problem, can you give this as an application? Then you're not appealing to other applications. So this is a direct proof, if I may. But yeah, you could of course appeal to say edge disjoint paths and prove it in a different way. That's also a possibility for sure. Okay, so let's go through these statements. Now, the way I've broken it down, each statement is quite straightforward. And it comes out as a direct application of Max-Flow Min-Cut rather than appealing to the previous applications we have seen. Okay, so that's the point. So, but here the purpose is also to go over the points that we have seen before and sort of do a revision of what we have seen. Okay, so for instance, we have shown that the flow values, if the flow is integral, can only be 0 or 1. So there is really nothing to show in first statement here. We've seen this already. Similarly, in the next two statements also, there is not much to show. So we are going to say that each vertex in X participates in at most one edge in M. And this proof is exactly what some of you have said in the comment. So let's go through it. Suppose there is a vertex U in X that has two edges incident on it in M, say UV and UV prime. Then, as per the construction of M, the flow value in UV should be 1, and in UV prime also the flow value should be 1. So therefore, the total flow leaving U is 2. But as I think Aditya and Adarsh both have said in the comments, that the total flow value leaving U is 2, but by flow conservation, the flow value entering U also must be 2. However, in G prime, there is only one edge entering U by our construction, and that has capacity 1. So that gives a contradiction. Okay, so this is the same as what you would have said if you were to reduce it via the edge disjointness problem as well. If you were to appeal to the connection to the edge disjoint path problem. Okay. Again, by a very, very similar argument, you can show that each vertex in Y participates in at most one edge in M as well. Okay, so I'll just leave this proof for you to figure out. So now the final thing, that M has F many edges. So we are going to try to appeal to it from first principles. So we are going to go back to something that we have learned in the past. This will be a quick recap for all of you. If you recall, we have shown that the flow in the network equals the flow. This is by definition that the flow in the network equals the flow leaving the source vertex. And that also equals the flow entering the sink vertex. Okay, and the way to argue for this proof was we added the zero term. Okay. This was that by definition, these are equal. And now this term basically contributes to 0. And then we clubbed these terms together and then wrote them in this particular way. This requires argument. Okay, so I think we have seen this proof not too long ago. I hope all of you remember. So now, using a very similar idea, we'll try to show the following statement. Let F be a flow in the flow network G with source S and sink T. Let S and T be any cut in G. Okay? Any cut, again, like in the previous case. Then the net flow across the cut, that is the flow leaving S minus the flow entering S, equals the total flow in the network. Okay, this is the statement I would like to show. And again, this is a proof that you have seen before, very similar to the the ideas in this proof are something very similar to what we have seen before. So again, I start with the definition of the flow and add the zero term like in the previous proof. Then we add another term, which is, and I should say plus here, which basically another zero term, if I will. Now after regrouping, you get this is the total flow leaving S, and this is the total flow entering S. Okay. And here what I mean is flow leaving S is for every vertex in S, the amount of flow leaving it. This is all being added here. And similarly, this is for flow. This is for flow leaving S. This is for flow entering S. Okay. So what we just managed to show was any flow is equal to, if F is a flow in the network, you can find a cut. And if S comma T is any cut, then we can show that the total flow leaving one side of the cut and total flow entering it must be equal to F. So now, with this little observation in our hand, we can easily prove the last statement here as well. So firstly, note that every matched vertex U in X has f of uv equal to 1. That is how we defined the matching M anyway, where U is matched with V. If U is matched with V in the set M, then f of uv is 1. If uv is not in the matching, then for such an edge fuv is 0. So this is how we have defined the set capital M. Now let us define a cut. The cut ST is defined as follows. The set S consists of vertex set X and vertex S, and T consists of Y and little t. It's very easy to see that S and T, capital S, capital T form a cut because they partition the vertex set, and little s belongs to capital S, little t belongs to capital T. So they form a cut. And the flow across the cut, which is the flow out of S minus flow into S, equals cardinality M. Yeah, that is because of these two statements here. But from what we saw, the value of the flow must be equal to flow out of S minus flow into S. And therefore, that equals cardinality M. Okay, so suppose we had, so that basically finishes the proof that M has cardinality F many edges. And now that we've shown all the 4 observations one by one, in fact, we have the entire proof for the statement we were trying to show. Okay, so in some sense, this proof was also not very difficult. It's just that we proved it using kind of first principles rather than appealing to another application that we have seen in the past. But as some of you observed, you could also appeal to, say, edge-disjoint paths and derive this as an application of that as well. Okay, so with that, we finish the second application that we plan to discuss today, which is maximum bipartite matching problem. Okay. A little bit about the problem. So this is a very interesting and important problem. It's a maximum bipartite matching itself has lots and lots of applications. And though I haven't mentioned them in my slides, there are, in the text, I can point you to textbooks where there are applications of maximum bipartite matching problem as well. One interesting situation where such problems come up are, for example, Google ads, where you have bidders on one side and ad slots on the other side, and they are required, the Google itself is required to select as many bidders and slots so that they can maximize their revenue. And I mean, there are many applications. I can point you to people who are interested to those applications. So if there are any questions, please ask them now. And we will take a short break after this and move on to the next slide deck. Yeah, so there is one question by Lisa. Can you please explain again how the flow across ST is M? Yeah, sure. So what we have just observed is that the total flow so of course this is my set, this is capital S. Look at the flow entering S, okay, and the flow that leaves S. Okay, so sorry, there was some connection problem at my end. 1 second. Yeah, sorry. I think, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, okay, good. Just a second. Right. So I was just saying, so let us count the flow leaving S. So for that, you have to count, so F leaving S. I hope I'm audible. Yeah, okay. I think I'm audible. Okay. Flow leaving S equals sum over vertices in S, flow leaving the vertex V. Now let us look at all the vertices that belong to capital S. They consist, so they, firstly, the entire set capital X is in S, and this little s is in S. Okay, so let us look at all the flow that leaves S. Okay, so we noted that when an edge belonged to the matching, we sent a flow of value 1 to that vertex from S. So suppose U comma V was a matching edge or edge in the set M, then we send a flow of value 1 from S to that vertex U. So for all the vertices that participate in the matching on the X side, we are sending a flow of value 1 there. Okay. So when I think about this term here, I have to add cardinality M amount of flow as the flow leaving the vertex little s. Similarly, if I look at every vertex in X, the flow leaving it is 1 if the edge is in capital M and 0 otherwise. So again, for vertices in capital X, I get a contribution of capital M. Okay. So this now becomes equal to F, the amount of flow leaving capital S. Now, how about the flow entering capital S? Okay. That is the flow entering different vertices in X, in S. But there is no flow entering the source node. Therefore, the only amount of flow that enters capital S is the amount of flow entering the vertices in capital X. And that is equal to, again, cardinality M. So therefore, this is 2 times cardinality M minus this is 1 time cardinality M, which equals cardinality M. I think Chandrasekhar in the comments already said this, and when I was not able to speak, I had given a thumbs up to that comment as well. I hope that clarifies the doubt, Lisa. If there is any other question, please feel free to ask. Okay, great. Yeah, I think that needed explanation. Thanks for asking. Are there any other questions related to this? If you want, I can do a quick recap of how we went about the whole thing. Like I said, there are multiple other ways of proving the same thing. But what we did was we gave a direct reduction from bipartite, maximum bipartite matching problem to the flow problem by converting the given graph to a flow network and then proving the 2 things written on the slide in the lemma in order to finish the proof. There will be a short tutorial sheet where you'll be asked to show similar things about other applications. And it probably is a good idea to try to do it from first principles whenever possible. Okay.
Ma'am?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Why was F entering S equal to mod M?
Right. So that, so the question is about, let me go to the slide where I wrote it down. Right. So this I'm saying is the flow leaving. So was your question about flow entering S or leaving S?
Entering S.
Entering capital S, is that right? Yeah. So why is the flow entering capital S equal to M? Okay, let's try to work that out. So let me work it out over here. So flow entering capital S can be broken down into flow entering little s plus sum over U in capital X, flow entering U. Now this quantity is 0. because we have assumed that source node has no edges coming into it. So this is just 0. What about the flow entering capital X? Here, there is a flow of value 1 entering a vertex U if UV is in. So recall how we constructed M. We formed M using this idea. Right? So for every vertex that belong to, now every edge that belongs to the matching, every vertex that belongs to the matching has a non-trivial flow entering it.
So like, is that modern because of the edges S to U in X?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And Sudhansh, I think your doubt is sort of from previous slides where I have now posted a correction. So Sudhansh is asking, didn't we have flow entering capital S as the total flow leaving capital S? No, not really, right? We defined for any vertex set U of a graph, the flow leaving capital U was defined to be sum over little u in capital U, flow leaving U. This was the definition. This is also posted on the slides now in detail. Does that clarify your doubt, Sudhansh? Yeah, good. Are there any other questions? Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just take a short break and we'll come back at say 7:03. Sorry, 12. Let's say 12:33. 12:33. That's 5 minutes from now. I'll put up the next slide deck by then. If you have other questions, I'm still around, so feel free to ask. So Divyansh is asking, this should be said as the total flow, right? Weren't we confused with net flow before? So which part of the slide are you referring to, Divyansh?
Ma'am, regarding Siddhant's questions, like that should be said as the total flow, right?
Yeah.
The previous one was the net, which we confused.
Exactly. Correct.